There comes a quiet hour in every life when the world steps back, when the voices fade, and you are left alone with nothing but your own heartbeat for company. Many fear this moment, mistaking it for emptiness, for abandonment. But there is a hidden power waiting in that silence. For it is in these unaccompanied spaces that you meet yourself without disguise, without approval, without interruption. And when you dare to stand there, unshaken and unafraid, you begin to discover a strength that no crowd could ever give you. A strength born not from being surrounded, but from finally belonging to yourself. Solitude is not loneliness, it is self-discovery in its purest form. When you find yourself alone, stripped of distractions and distant from the noise of expectation, you are given a rare and sacred opportunity to meet the person you have been becoming all along. It is in this stillness that your thoughts stop performing for others and begin speaking truthfully to you. You begin to notice what brings you peace, what unsettles your spirit, what dreams have been quietly waiting for your attention. And in that awareness, something powerful begins to awaken within you. Too often, the world teaches you to fear being alone, as if your worth is measured by the number of people around you. But the truth is, crowds can sometimes drown your identity, and constant company can delay your growth. When you are always surrounded, it becomes easy to borrow opinions, to lean on others for direction, to lose sight of your own inner compass. Solitude, however, gently removes those crutches. It invites you to stand on your own thoughts, to trust your own decisions, to walk your own path even when no one is watching. And that is where real strength begins to take root. In those quiet moments, you also learn how to sit with yourself, without judgment, without the need to escape. You face your fears, your doubts, your past, and instead of running, you begin to understand them. You realize that healing does not require an audience and growth does not need applause. It happens slowly in silence, like a seed pushing through the soil, unseen but unstoppable. And as you continue to embrace your own presence, you discover a resilience that cannot be shaken by absence or rejection because it was built in the moments when you had only yourself to rely on. There is a certain grace that comes from no longer needing to be constantly surrounded. You begin to choose people not out of fear of being alone, but from a place of wholeness. You become more intentional, more aware, more grounded in who you are. And suddenly, solitude is no longer something to escape. It becomes something you return to, a place where you recharge, reflect, and reconnect with your truth. It becomes your quiet strength, your hidden sanctuary. So do not mistake your alone moments as empty spaces. They are, in fact, the richest chapters of your story. They are where you gather your courage, where you refine your spirit, where you learn to stand tall without leaning. And when you step back into the world, you do so not as someone seeking to be completed, but as someone already whole, stronger, wiser, and deeply rooted in the power of simply being your own. When you stand alone, you finally hear your own voice clearly, not the echo of expectations, not the borrowed language of approval, but a voice that has been waiting patiently beneath all the noise. It does not shout, it does not rush, it speaks with a quiet certainty, the kind that does not need permission to exist. And when you begin to listen, truly listen, you realize how long you have been guided by everything but yourself. There is a kind of courage required to hear your own voice, because it will not always tell you what is easy. It will remind you of the paths you avoided, the truths you softened, the dreams you placed on hold for the comfort of belonging. Yet, it will also offer you something far greater than comfort. It will offer you honesty. And in that honesty, you begin to understand who you are when no one is shaping your thoughts, when no one is watching your steps. That understanding becomes your foundation, steady and unshaken. In a world that constantly speaks over you, solitude becomes an act of reclaiming. Every moment you spend alone is a moment you take your power back, piece by piece. You begin to separate what you truly believe from what you were told to believe. You start to recognize your own rhythm, your own pace, your own way of seeing the world. And as that awareness deepens, so does your confidence. Not the loud, attention seeking kind, but a quiet confidence that stands firm even in silence. There is a freedom in no longer needing to fill every quiet space with distraction. When you are at ease with your own presence, silence no longer feels empty. It feels full, full of clarity, full of possibility, full of truth. You begin to trust your instincts, to make decisions without constant reassurance, to move forward without waiting for agreement, and that trust transforms the way you walk through life because you are no longer divided within yourself. So when you find yourself standing alone, do not rush to escape it. Stay there long enough to hear what your own voice has been trying to say. Let it guide you. Let it challenge you. Let it remind you of your worth. Because once you learn to recognize and trust that voice, you carry something unbreakable within you. You carry a sense of self that no opinion can shake, no rejection can silence, and no crowd can define. And in that, there is a strength that stays with you wherever you go. Being alone teaches you to become your own anchor. In a world that is constantly shifting, where people come and go like passing seasons, there is a quiet power in learning how to hold yourself steady. Too often we place our sense of security in the hands of others, hoping they will stay, hoping they will understand, hoping they will never let us drift too far. But life has a way of reminding us that not everything is meant to remain, and not everyone is meant to stay. And when those moments of separation arrive, it is not the absence of others that defines you. It is your ability to remain grounded within yourself. There is something deeply transformative about realizing that you can support your own weight, that even when everything around you feels uncertain, there is a part of you that does not waver. You begin to understand that stability is not something you find outside of yourself, but something you build within. It grows quietly, through every challenge you face alone, through every decision you make without guidance, through every night you sit with your thoughts and choose not to break. And piece by piece you become stronger, not because life became easier, but because you became more rooted. When you become your own anchor, you stop chasing constant reassurance. You no longer need someone to tell you that you are enough because you have already made peace with that truth. You no longer depend on others to calm your storms because you have learned how to weather them yourself. This does not make you distant or closed off. It makes you whole. It allows you to connect with others without losing yourself in them, to give without feeling empty, to love without fearing that your entire world will collapse if someone walks away. There is also a quiet dignity in standing firm on your own. It changes the way you move through life. You become less shaken by rejection, less disturbed by opinions, less afraid of being misunderstood, not because those things no longer exist, but because they no longer define you. Your sense of worth is no longer tied to how tightly someone holds onto you, but to how deeply you are connected to yourself. And that connection becomes your strength, your balance, your calm in the midst of uncertainty. So when life pulls you into moments of solitude, do not see them as moments of loss. See them as moments of building. Every second you spend learning to stand on your own is a second you are strengthening the foundation beneath you. And when the world begins to move again, when people come and go, when circumstances change without warning, you will not be easily shaken. Because you have already learned the most important lesson of all. You are not adrift, you are anchored. In solitude, you stop seeking validation and start building value. When you are alone, you no longer feel the constant pull to be seen, praised, or approved by others. You realize that the applause of the world is fleeting, that the opinions of others are often more about them than about you. And in that realization, you find freedom. You are free to explore your passions, free to follow your instincts, free to take risks that no one else may understand. This is the space where real growth begins, not the kind that is measured by likes, comments, or recognition, but the kind that is measured by depth, by skill, by integrity, and by the quiet satisfaction of knowing you are becoming the person you are meant to be. As you spend time alone, you begin to notice what truly matters to you. The values you were raised with, the dreams you thought you had to hide, the gifts you forgot you possessed, they all rise to the surface. Solitude gives you the clarity to see yourself without comparison, to assess your own worth without someone else's standards. And when you embrace that clarity, you start making choices that are aligned with your authentic self. Every decision becomes an investment in your growth, every action a testament to your principles, every thought a brick in the foundation of the life you are building for yourself. You also discover that value is not something handed to you, it is something you create. It is in learning, in reflecting, in practicing patience with yourself and with life. It is in the quiet hours when no one is watching, when you push through doubt, when you take responsibility for your own happiness. You become a person who can stand alone and still feel complete, a person whose worth is not dependent on external recognition, but on internal alignment. And that is the kind of strength that is lasting because it comes from a source no one can take away. Being alone teaches you to trust your judgment and rely on your effort. You learn to set goals for yourself, to challenge yourself, and to celebrate your own progress without waiting for applause. You stop shrinking your potential to fit into other people's expectations and start expanding it to match your own. In this way, solitude becomes not a punishment, but a tool, a mentor, and a teacher. It reminds you that the value you build inside yourself will inevitably radiate outward, touching the world in ways that no external validation ever could. When you embrace solitude, you stop measuring your life by the approval of others and start measuring it by your own growth, your own integrity, and your own purpose. You learn that the most important recognition is the one you give yourself, the quiet nod of understanding that says, I am enough, I am growing, I am becoming. And that, more than any applause, more than any accolade, is the kind of value that makes you unshakable, unstoppable, and profoundly strong. The strongest people are those who learn to heal without an audience. They have sat in the quiet of their own hearts and faced wounds that no one else could see, that no one else could fix. Pain does not always come with witnesses, and suffering does not always come with applause. Yet, it is in those private moments of struggle, in the nights spent wrestling with fear, grief, and doubt, that real resilience is born. Healing in solitude is not easy. It requires courage, patience, and a willingness to meet yourself fully, even when it hurts. But those who embrace it discover a strength that cannot be borrowed. Borrowed applause cannot substitute, nor can fleeting sympathy replicate. When you learn to heal alone, you stop seeking pity from others and start seeking understanding from yourself. You stop asking for someone to tell you it will be okay, and you learn to whisper it to yourself until it feels true. Each tear shed in solitude, each moment of quiet reflection, each time you pick yourself up without a helping hand, adds a layer to your character that no crowd could ever give. You begin to realize that being seen is not the same as being whole, and that the measure of your strength is not in how many people notice your recovery, but in how deeply you have learned from it. Healing without an audience also teaches you self-reliance. When no one is watching, you must find your own ways to cope, to grow, and to forgive. You learn to nurture your own heart, to soothe your own pain, to create your own light in moments of darkness. This kind of independence does not make you distant from others. It makes you more capable of genuine connection because you are no longer dependent on others to make you feel safe or valued. You bring to relationships not neediness or expectation, but a whole, resilient presence that uplifts rather than clings. There is a quiet dignity in learning to repair your own heart. You begin to understand that struggle is part of life, but it does not define you unless you let it. Every challenge you face alone, every battle you fight within yourself becomes a testament to your endurance. And when the world tests you again, as it inevitably will, you find that your foundation has been strengthened by all those unseen moments. You carry within you a quiet authority, a calm assurance, and a deep understanding that you have survived, grown, and transformed without waiting for applause. Ultimately, those who heal without an audience become unshakable. They move through life with a quiet power that comes from knowing they can survive themselves. They do not need validation, for they have learned to validate their own journey. They do not need recognition, for they have already recognized their own worth. And in that solitude, in that private, often painful work of healing, they discover the true measure of strength, a strength that shines not in the eyes of the world, but in the unbreakable spirit that no one can take away. Alone time sharpens your mind and strengthens your emotional resilience. When you are by yourself, without distractions or interruptions, your thoughts become clearer, more focused, and more intentional. In the quiet, you can reflect on decisions you have made, analyze situations from every angle, and see patterns in your life that might have been invisible when surrounded by constant noise. Your mind, given space to breathe, begins to organize itself in ways that foster creativity, insight, and clarity. Ideas that were muddled in the chaos of daily life suddenly reveal themselves, and solutions you had overlooked come gently into view. Being alone also trains your emotions. Without someone else's mood to mirror or influence your own, you learn to identify what you truly feel and why. You begin to recognize triggers, to separate external circumstances from internal reactions, and to notice when your heart responds from fear, hope, or past experiences rather than the present moment. This self-awareness allows you to navigate life with steadier emotions, making choices rooted in understanding rather than impulse. Each moment spent alone is a rehearsal for emotional resilience, a quiet exercise in patience, empathy, and self-control that no crowd could ever teach. Alone time also gives you the space to practice discipline. You learn to motivate yourself, to pursue goals without applause, to maintain routines without supervision, and to follow through with promises you make to yourself. There is a satisfaction in knowing that you can keep your own word, that your drive does not depend on recognition, and that you can continue moving forward even when no one is there to encourage you. This self-discipline, quietly forged in solitude, becomes a foundation for all aspects of life, strengthening both your mind and your ability to handle challenges gracefully. Moreover, solitude allows you to process experiences deeply rather than skimming over them. When the world is not demanding your attention, you have the time to reflect, to evaluate lessons learned, and to integrate them into your growth. You notice how you respond under pressure, how you adapt to change, and how your mind can problem solve when given space. These quiet hours train your brain to anticipate challenges, manage stress, and maintain clarity under circumstances that might otherwise feel overwhelming. It is in these private moments that emotional resilience is quietly but powerfully built. Finally, being alone teaches you the value of inner peace. You realize that you do not need constant stimulation, approval, or validation to feel whole. When your mind is sharpened and your emotions are steady, you carry a sense of calm and strength into the world. Challenges that might once have shaken you now pass with less turbulence because you have trained yourself to respond from clarity and balance rather than fear or habit. Solitude is not emptiness, it is preparation. It is the forge in which your mind is honed and your heart is strengthened so that when life demands its greatest of you, you are ready. You grow differently when no one is there to distract your purpose. In the quiet of solitude, there is no one to compare yourself to, no one to set expectations for you, no one to pull you into directions that do not align with your vision. You are left with nothing but your own intentions, your own dreams, and the choices that will shape your life. It is in this space that growth becomes intentional. Every action, every thought, every decision is yours to make, and that ownership changes the way you approach life. You learn to prioritize what truly matters, to invest your energy where it will create meaning, and to discard what only clutters your journey. When no one is there to distract your purpose, you learn patience. Growth is no longer measured by how fast you achieve, how much others notice, or how loudly your progress is acknowledged. Instead, it is measured by consistency, by the depth of your commitment, by the resilience you build when the world isn't watching. You come to understand that meaningful growth often happens slowly, in unseen steps, and that the quiet effort you put into yourself matters far more than the applause of others. You begin to respect the process rather than rush toward results, and in that respect, a deeper, more lasting kind of strength is cultivated. Solitude also gives you the freedom to experiment without fear. When no one is there to judge or influence your path, you can test your limits, explore new ideas, and discover abilities you never knew you had. Mistakes are no longer embarrassing. They are lessons, and each lesson becomes a stepping stone toward mastery and self-awareness. You develop the confidence to trust your intuition, the courage to follow your own path, and the wisdom to know that your journey is yours alone. Growth in solitude is authentic because it is unshaped by expectations, uncolored by opinions, and uncompromised by the need for acceptance. Being alone also allows you to notice subtler forms of growth that often go unnoticed in the company of others. You observe how your thoughts evolve, how your priorities shift, and how your character responds to challenges and setbacks. You learn to listen to yourself, to respect your limits, and to celebrate small victories that would have been drowned out by distraction. Each of these realizations strengthens your sense of purpose, anchoring you more firmly in the person you are becoming. You grow not only in skill and knowledge, but in understanding, patience, and emotional maturity. Ultimately, when no one is there to distract your purpose, you become profoundly self-reliant. You learn to cultivate focus, persistence, and resilience as natural parts of who you are. You discover that the source of your growth lies within, and that by honoring your own path, you can accomplish more than you ever imagined. In solitude, your purpose is no longer shaped by the noise of the world. It is refined by your own will, clarity, and dedication. And in that, you find a strength and growth that are unshakable, enduring, and truly your own. When you embrace being alone, you stop fearing loss and start owning your power. When the world around you feels uncertain, when people come and go, when relationships shift and circumstances change, it is easy to feel unmoored, as though everything you hold dear might slip through your fingers. But solitude teaches a profound truth. Nothing outside of you can diminish the strength that already resides within. When you learn to rely on yourself, to honor your own worth, and to nurture your own spirit, the fear of losing something or someone begins to lose its hold over you. You discover that your power is not contingent on what you possess or who stays by your side. It is inherent, rooted deep within your being. Being alone allows you to reclaim the control that life often seems to take away. When no one else dictates your choices or influences your direction, you begin to recognize the magnitude of your own agency. Every decision you make, every boundary you set, every step you take toward your dreams is a declaration of your sovereignty. Loss may still happen, people may leave, opportunities may pass, circumstances may change, but your inner strength remains intact. You begin to understand that power is not about possession. It is about presence, awareness, and the ability to stand tall in the face of uncertainty. And in this realization, you feel an unshakable confidence that the world cannot take from you. Embracing solitude also teaches you to value your own company above all else. You no longer measure your happiness by who is around you or by the approval of others. Instead, you cultivate a sense of completeness that comes from within. You find joy in your own growth, satisfaction in your own accomplishments, and peace in your own reflections. This self-sufficiency becomes your shield, a reminder that you are capable of weathering storms, without depending on anyone else to steady you. Loss no longer feels like devastation because you carry the most important source of stability and power inside yourself. When you stop fearing loss, you also gain clarity in relationships and priorities. You begin to attract people who respect your independence, value your presence, and enhance your life rather than diminish it. You no longer cling to what does not serve you, no longer compromise your principles out of fear, and no longer allow anyone else's actions to dictate your sense of self-worth. Your power lies in choice, in the conscious decisions to protect your energy, honor your boundaries, and pursue your own purpose. Solitude sharpens that clarity, allowing you to act from strength rather than fear. Finally, owning your power in solitude transforms the way you approach life itself. You walk with confidence, knowing that no matter what you face, you are equipped to handle it. You embrace challenges as opportunities to grow, setbacks as lessons to strengthen your resolve, and endings as chances to step into new beginnings. The fear of loss fades, replaced by a deep understanding that the most enduring possession you have is your own spirit, your own will, and your own courage. In learning to stand alone, you discover a freedom and power that no circumstance can ever take from you, a power that is wholly, completely, and irrevocably your own.